What did the buffalo say when his son left? Bison. What's going on, YouTube? It is Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, i.e., when I take my lunch break for you guys. And we have our first of three weekly rotational vendors. The first one is inside of Apocrypha, which we can find inside the Infinite Archive. Again, you can find some coins on the table. You can't pick up these for some reason. And the reason we talk about these bad boys is they have a rotational stock of items. You have a full work week to get these, or full 7-day period to get these. And the first item is the annotated Spore Crafter designs. Now, this just gives you some body markings, but I will tell you, as somebody that went to go get these markings for some reason, that Alchemy Crafting Writs is pretty freaking annoying. So if you want to just skip having to worry about that, and you want to get these spore markings, do they have I assume there's a kind of a picture. Very zoomed out, but it's kind of like, you got a little thing going, on the tops of the shoulders. Kind of comes down to the chesticle area. It's pretty cool, but it's certainly not essential, for you to purchase. I mean, it's just a body marking that 99% of you would have covered up with the armor that you're wearing. But it is a really annoying lead. Next, though, we have Brutal Ritual Dust. Now, this one is interesting because it comes from Malakaz's Band of Brutality, but it's just Reaper's March's world bosses. Now, I've been loving Reaper's March recently. You guys know about New Riften, the real ones know. But I wouldn't suggest that you purchase something that's as easy as killing world bosses. Now, if it was like the Murkmire world bosses, and you struggle to get people on at the same time to help you kill them, yeah, those things are almost impossible to solo. But these bad mamma jammas, base game world bosses, you can kill any of them, super easy. Don't worry about it. Now, next, we have Veildrith's Mask. You can see how it looks right on here. And if you were to head on over to the actual Tamriel's Trading Center, you'd see just two listings for, about 2 million gold. One person is slightly trying to undercut the other person. But then if you were to go over time, you would notice there's definitely time periods where there's a more listing sample size. But usually it still maintains decent value. But, I mean, sometimes the listing averages do go pretty low, including a dropout at 400 thou wow. So I would say it's probably in your best interest to just purchase one of these later when it comes back up again. This, I believe, has highlighted during an Undaunted Celebration event, so there's a chance that it gets highlighted again. And it's just not one that looks great, so its value really is just as a collector's item, so people are only going to be really buying these to put in their sticker book. It's not like you're saving yourself, a really good amount of gold, and you're getting something that looks really cool. It's a bit Northern Elsewhere treasure maps, I wish were good because I love Crafty Elfie. It's my favorite set in the absolute game. But the problem is there's no chase items that make it worth it. There's no ancestral motifs. There's no even really good furnishing plans, that could be, maybe bound to you or dug up, or a chance to even get alien plans. There's no ability to get antiquity. So there's just a lack of things to get with the Northern Elsewhere treasure map, making it not worth doing for 2,000 fortunes. And companion weapons is also a bit of a risk because, you might get the weapon you want. You're like, oh, Jake, I'm building the tank. I got a shield. Well, guess what? You just got a healing trait on it. Now, what do you do with that? So the problem with weapons is it's the biggest gamble. Sometimes it's the biggest reward because sometimes weapons seem to be the one that's off the market the most. I gave an example of this, but I wanted to get a tanking trait on a purple shield for my friend David. And the entirety of every guild trader listed on all of console, there was two. There was just two of them. So you can see that sometimes there is a lack of them on the market. But thankfully, we always have our books. We have the Preparing of the Necrom Quama 5th draft. Now, personally, I don't really write drafts past the first one, but God bless, he wrote 5 of them. And then Torvald's Journal. He's got a lot to say. Worth the read. Then we have Berserk, Bleed, Immobilize, Crusaders Defiance. I hope that you guys don't have to do any of these because these are ridiculously expensive for your Archival Fortunes, especially if you don't have them unlocked on another character. Things like Berserk can be, fine to get. Bleed damage is certainly fine. Some people might use it on some weird build. Immobilize can be pretty helpful if you're trying to do something specific. Crusaders Defiance is So I would skip all of these. Just keep doing your daily quests, realistically. None of these jump out at me as a you really need this one immediately. Then we have our skeever component. I know a lot of you guys are thinking 7,000 archival fortunes times 25 for an ugly pet. Yes, sir. Next up, we have our one that drops from just a generic place that you could just go to a public dungeon and get it all done. Fragments can be purchased on the ESO market. The Dwarven Theodite Wheels is probably only worth like 10 to 20,000 gold. It's not even worth farming it. Just go buy it if you want to get the whole, all the pieces together. And then you have Fragments of the Vents, which I will give you 10 guesses if you can get what that's for. And if you guessed volcanic vents, well, you are correct. 1,000 archival fortunes to not have to farm one vent is certainly an investment. Some people may buy it out there, but that's probably one I would avoid. You're not gonna beat the S&P 500 investing in the fragment of the vents. And next up, we have our second vendor, which is inside the Scholarium, inside of Ivea over here. If you've never been here before, now this one is great because you can buy these with gold. Interrupt, poison damage, class mastery, which does require you to have a prerequisite done, and Knight Valor. Now, a lot of these are not essential. Interrupt, I actually kind of like for PvP. It's really fun to use, interrupting people, because you can put it on an AoE and mass interrupt people, but not really essential, and oftentimes I find it kind of leaving my skill bar just because I don't really use it. Poison damage can be good. Probably would recommend buying this one. And honestly, interrupt. If you have a decent chunk of gold, I would buy the majority of these. Class mastery, again, is good, but you have to have the achievement associated with it. And then Knight's Valor is probably the worst one on here. This one's going to be also the most expensive. Maybe if you're balling on a budget, you don't buy it, but I like to just get all of them, and then I just sell them for 1,000 gold back to the vendor if I get a duplicate. So that's why I always encourage people to try to get all of them, because you never know what's going to be good in the future. And next up, we have our Lambient Passage versus little vendor here inside of the Imperial City. Now, Doctor, this bad mamma jamma here, if you're ever confused on the location, check out the ESO Helper website below. And we actually have agility. Agility is cool because it comes in 3 flavors. You have maximum stamina, magicka, and health. Now, this is one of the most notable 3-piece sets in the game. Its 2-piece gives you a good chunk of stamina, and its 3-piece gives you weapon and spell damage. So this is pretty much a Mark and Ring enthusiast type build. Or if you're trying to do a max stat build for Raven Watch, or if, Zoss ever said, hey, we're turning off all the sets, 5-piece bonuses, that do that proc, you could use this. However, I don't really see them doing that. I think that they're more so focused on changing skills. And the only reason I mention that is I always like to think in the future, how good is a set going to be? Agility is a set that I think, though, that will be around for a while just due to the Mark and Ring being good. And it's also not to the point where it's so good that it's going to be nerfed. Like, I could see Saint Seducer being nerfed in the near future. I don't really see the Mark and Ring being nerfed. And agility is a perfectly good set to kind of combo with a build like that, because it, for those of you who don't know, the Mark and Ring gives you a bonus for every 3-piece set you have. So you could continue to wear 5-piece sets because it's a 3-piece set, because it's got a 3-piece set bonus. But generally, you want to try to use multiple 3-piece sets versus 5-piece sets to get an additional bonus from that ring. All that to say, this is probably like an 8 or a 9. It's very limited in scope and what it's good for, but there is some great utilization for it. Next up, we have another PvP set, because that's all that drops from here, and that's Hawkeyes. You get Stam, Weapon and Spell, reduce the cost and increase the damage of your bow abilities by 6%. Now, this bad boy it's just always outpaced by other sets. There's always proc sets that do more damage, that are more helpful. Part of the problem is its 2 and 3 of max stamina don't really help you. A lot of times when you're building a character that's going to use a bow, you want to just crank out tons of weapon and spell damage. You're not really worried about your maximum stamina. And it's giving you reduced cost, so you really need less stamina. You just want to crank nothing but damage. So that's why it's always beat out by all of these other sets. Even sets that have been nerfed significant amounts of times are still going to be used more than this. I mean, Calorians has been nerfed into oblivion, and this still sees more use than Hawkeyes. Next up is an annoying lead to get. It's Netchbeak Clasps. Now, this one, I will warn you, is from a very weird mythic that you probably don't necessarily need, That's because it comes from Crypt Cannon's vestments, but it comes from treasure chests in the Telvanni Peninsula. Telvanni Peninsula is notably doesn't have a lot of great chest routes. Now, somebody may discover one, making this a lot easier, or there might be people with some hidden deep knowledge as to where to go. But thankfully, this isn't really a mythic that you need. Um, Crypt Cannon, you no longer cast your ultimate ability. Instead, casting an ultimate transfers your ultimate resource to your living group members divided equally, and you have minor heroism at all time in combat. So it's kind of like a ball group set where you just kind of give ultimate to your teammates. It's very niche in scope. It does have some scope and utilization, but it's not something that you need to focus on buying and that to avoid farming treasure chests. Similar to the withered garlic gorget. Now, this thing is also very finicky. It comes from the fawn lark's cladding. Now, normally it just comes from all bosses of the Obsidian Scar public dungeon, Rivenspire. Very easy to farm. That will be super easy for you. And it's this weird charm one, and no real good utilization was found for this mythic, in my opinion. I think it's a solid like B mythic, which is still good, but it's not one that it's like, oh, if you have this mythic, you're gonna be able to reach the meta or the pinnacle of this type of content. It's just neat, and neat doesn't really inspire me to tell you to go out and either farm it or spend your premium currencies to get it. Next up, we have Rothgar treasure maps. Now, Rothgar treasure maps have some of the best sets in the game that have stood the test of time. Briarheart, Pariah, and even still, not worth buying their treasure maps. It literally probably has to be one of the most recent zones to come out to ever be worth purchasing their maps to actually try to convert them to gold, because you can already convert these currencies to gold using other methods. So why would you want to utilize treasure maps, which are a gamble? And notably, you're just going to be losing the your rate because you could just get better gold returns if you bought pretty much anything else from the other vendors with Telvar. Same with Archival Fortunes. You'd be better off buying provisioning or alchemy satchels. We're skipping past all of the rings of the sets we talked about above, but we do have Defile, Generate Ultimate, Trauma, and Gladiator's Tenacity. Now, I am a huge fan of Defile and Generate Ultimate. I do use both of those scripts. Generate Ultimate, listen here, everybody, right? There's this bug. You may have seen it. It's where you're usually always in combat in Cyrodiil. Causes you to not mount. Really annoying, right? Well, what if you had minor heroism at all times? Well, you'd be able to use your ultimate pretty much all the time. For those of you who don't know, heroism requires you to be in combat. Well, you're in a combat all the time. You're going to be generating ultimate all the time just for standing around. So, I love Generate Ultimate. You're pretty much always in combat in Cyrodiil or a battleground, so why not use that to your advantage and generate some ultimate? Defile is just good because it's easy to kind of combo on people, and some classes don't have easy access to defile people. So I just recommend it as a really good option for people to have on their, as an option for scribing. Now, if you don't have it unlocked on your current character, it's going to cost you a little bit more in Telvar. Is it worth buying? Maybe if you want to jump into PvP like right now and you want Generate Ultimate, I can 100% suggest it. You'll be ulting all the time. Defile is a little bit more finicky, and the other two are definite skips, but I love me some Ultimate. And we wrap up on the Fragment of the Crucible. Now, this thing is kind of interesting because it actually comes from the Blessed Crucible final boss. I should have given you like 20 guesses to guess that. And it will actually affect your werewolf. You'll be a little bit greener when you use Roar. So, I mean, that's something. Now, again, if you don't know how fragments work, you just need to do something one time. It's not like a lead where it might drop, might not drop. You just get it. So, Blessed Crucible, base game dungeon, not super difficult, and you would get a green werewolf. Now, we'll warn you have to do all of these things, but notably, the only thing that's actually more difficult is Moonhunter Keep, which, granted, is a little bit more annoying. If you took a bunch of random ESO players in there that were like level 20 on normal difficulty, it'll probably be very difficult. But if you got people with thumbs, maybe even just one thumb, you'd be able to beat it on normal difficulty, I pinky promise. Moonhunter Keep used to be the pinnacle of ESO difficulty, but it's since been, power creep has really moved past Moonhunter Keep's, mechanics. It's relatively easy these days, even especially on normal. But everyone, thank you guys so much again for watching. As always, we're doing our 3 giveaway drawings, but also we're going to be going live later on Twitch. I don't know exactly what time yet, probably whenever work ends, which you think I would know what time that ends, but it kind of just depends on how silly the little hooligans are today. So as always, we're doing our 3 giveaway drawings. All you have to do to enter is leave a comment and like on the video. Second thing is just make sure you're subscribed / follow on Twitch and Twitter for an additional entry. And the third thing is look for a hidden word be flashed up on screen. If you're the first person to find and comment that word, you will win. And as always, we have access to all sorts of cool stuff. ESO Plus, we have the Gold Road Edition, we've got crowns, and if none of those things work for you, I can always give you a gift card, which is what I had been doing before I was, brought onto the creator program. So thank you guys again for your support on the channel, and I'll catch you guys, hopefully, but just a little bit later. Bye, guys.
You better remember to like and subscribe to Jakeclips. Or you should. I might have to pluck your eyes if you don't. Or, better yet, I'll skip rope with your entrails. Do it now. Subscribe. Ta-ta. Off with you.